welcome back to Life on the Fringe. Today we are going to be talking about the gay agenda. Yes, I am a believer in the gay agenda. I just think it might not be what you're thinking that it is. So let me introduce myself. My name is Francesca, and I identify as a cisgender woman, bisexual woman, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And today I'm going to be talking about what the recent history of the gay agenda from both Republicans and Democrats and from gay people themselves, with a particular emphasis on the recent inauguration of President Biden and the transition between the Trump presidency and the beginnings of the Biden presidency. I'm filming this the day after the inauguration, so more may have developed between when I film and when this goes up. But I'm going to be linking everything, news articles that I'm citing, in the description down below for you to check out. Unfortunately, a lot of them are going to be the New York Times, not all of them. Sometimes it can be hard to open them multiple times if you don't have a subscription. So a hack is to use incognito and open them that way. Close, reopen, because it doesn't track your history, and then you should be able to see all of them. I have a subscription because I read them all the time, and I try to support newspapers and journalism. But, okay, where to start? There's a lot of places we could start. It doesn't make sense to start with the changes if we don't know where we're coming from. So let's go back to slightly before the Trump presidency. One of Trump's first moves before he became president was to select a vice president, and he chose Mike Pence, from Indiana, my home state. Mike Pence has a very interesting history and his own gay agenda, which is to be against LGBTQ+ people from a policy perspective. So I want to briefly go over some of the key points of Mike Pence's gay agenda. And the reason I'm using it like this, it's typically used by right-wingers to describe really anything positive about something that happens in the LGBTQ+ community, like a singular character being gay, or when Beauty and the Beast had that gay kiss, it wasn't even a kiss, gay dancing between LeFou and unnamed character as being the first openly gay Disney movie character. I mean, if you squint real hard, maybe you can see it, but whatever. That's the gay agenda. We'll get into that. But I think it's more useful to think of the gay agenda as where you want LGBT rights to go in the future. And so everyone kind of has their own gay agenda. Myself, I want more rights for people in the LGBTQ+ community, and that's my agenda. Equality. That's what I'm pushing for. That's what I'm advocating for. It's what I will advocate for. That's my agenda as an LGBTQ+ person. It's not to convert anybody to being LGBTQ+ that isn't, but it is to be a representative and to help people who might be unsafe coming out become in a more safe environment where they can come out, and therefore we could see more LGBTQ+ people in the future who are out because it's safer for them to come out. But that doesn't mean that we're trying to convince people to join our ranks. the whole point is every sexuality is a valid, sexuality. Don't take that out of context, because some people are now saying that part of the LGBTQ plus agenda is to include things like pedophilia. No. Consensual sexuality. Pedophilia is not consensual. So let's just move aside. Bestiality also. Right? Where's the consent? So moving forward, assuming you don't hold those views, we can continue on this conversation. Now, if you are more socially conservative, your gay agenda might be to either limit the rights of gay people, or to, and I'm using gay here as an umbrella term, or to be allowed to express your religious views against gay people in the public sphere. So this would include not making a wedding cake for a gay couple because you don't believe in gay marriage. We'll get into that in a second. But that would be your agenda, right? So it's not like everybody on some level has an agenda when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, and I think that saying that only LGBTQ plus people do is laughable. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, as I said, jumping into the past with Mike Pence. So, if you see me looking down, it's because I have news articles and notes pulled up on my laptop. Because I don't want this to just be me rambling on, although I probably will and have to cut a lot of it out. I do want this to be an informed video, because if I'm going to talk about politics, I want to do it in a responsible way and a fact-based way. So, in 2000, Mike Pence, during his congressional campaign, said, quote, "Congress should oppose any effort to put gay and lesbian relationships on equal legal status with heterosexual marriage." Now, in 2000, unquote, that was not an uncommon view. A lot of people felt that way. People are going to point that out with Obama, who changed his opinion around that time period. Hillary Clinton as well. Many people at that time, that was a very normalized viewpoint. So it doesn't really okay, maybe his mind changed as he aged, learned more about the community. So also in 2000, this is where it gets a little bit more extreme, Pence supported the reauthorization of the Ryan White Care Act only if federal dollars were excluded from organizations who celebrate and encourage behavior that facilitates the spreading of HIV virus. Further, Pence supported this reauthorization only if, quote, "those institutions provided assistance to those looking to change their sexual behavior," unquote. Basically an off-the-cuff endorsement for ex-gay conversion therapy. And I'm reading this from the Indiana Democratic Party link, so I will link that down below. Obviously, it's partisan. However, it is a quote, which is why I feel comfortable citing this document. And again, fact check me if you want to. Please put sources down below. I would not want to say anything that's factually inaccurate. Okay, again, that's still in 2000, so we move ahead. We move ahead a few years. Here's in 2007. Pence voted against the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. I mean, I think that says something. Then in 2010, Mike Pence voted against the Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal, which allowed LGBT Americans to openly serve their country in military service. That's not that long ago, 2010. And personally, I feel like if you are moved to serve in the U.S. military, I don't think you should be excluded and forced to hide who you are, because who you are is a patriot and a hero, first and foremost. So, but that's 2010. Okay, that's still before Trump picked him. So still like kind of in the more distant recent past. And we have the 2015 Religious Freedom Restoration Act. I'm just going to insert a clip here of Jon Stewart's take on this on The Daily Show, because I don't think I could say it better than Jon Stewart. So, here's the clip. So that's 2015. Trump ran for president in 2016. So, at this point, he's campaigning. And, that's something he would have heard of, presumably, if you're involved in politics at all. In 2014, obviously this is a little bit backwards, but in 2014 he also supported HJR 3, which was a bill to add an amendment to Indiana's constitution that would ban same-sex marriage. So, if that's not a gay agenda, I don't know what is. It's just an anti-gay agenda. And then we had Trump pick him as vice president. So that leads me into Trump and Pence's gay agenda. So, briefly recapping what happened, if you aren't aware of Trump's positioning and actions against the LGBTQ community, we're going to go briefly through that. And I just want to say that if you aren't, I'm not going to hold that against you. There was a lot happening between 2016 and 2020. And obviously, LGBTQ plus issues are not the only issues that matter. That's not what this video is trying to say. It's more so trying to highlight one area of policy and how it's changing between presidencies. Everything that I've mentioned so far, all of these policies don't affect straight people, except for potentially their ability to discriminate against LGBTQ plus people. So that's why they're not included in the acronym. And why, things like Pride exist to, emphasize the things that still need changing and the progress that has been made. Because, boy, is there progress to be made. Because let's jump into the Trump presidency. So, this is from the Human Rights Center. Now, this document that I'm, again, linking everything below, is not exclusive to LGBTQ plus issues, so I will only be talking about those in this video. Not to say the others don't matter or aren't important. The article is worth reading. So, less than 2 hours after after Trump was sworn into office, all mentions of LGBTQ plus issues were removed from the White House website. Now, this one is particularly interesting because we can have a direct comparison to President Biden's changes to the White House website. One of which is to, when you're submitting, like you want to write in to the White House about an issue you care about, adding more pronouns. So that would be a plus to many people in the LGBTQ plus community. So that would be a direct contrast between these two presidencies, and how they're willing to, what they're willing to do. And there are some people who I've seen when they've read that in the comments of these articles and Facebook posts, basically saying, well, who cares about this? It should be covered in real, what's real news? It's like, yeah, but you also supported a guy who made dramatic changes to the White House website 4 years ago. So let's not pretend that you didn't care then, but now we shouldn't care. I don't know what to tell you. So, additionally, we have the nomination of Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court to fill the vacancy left by Justice Scalia. Now, Gorsuch has a history of being anti-equality. For example, he opposed the crucial medical treatment for a transgender person, as well as supporting a license to discriminate for private corporations, similar to Pence. So if you're saying, well, Trump, well, that's not Trump. None of this is Trump. Trump picked these two people, so I don't know how that argument stands. But moving on. The Department of Justice announced that it will no longer challenge a nationwide hold on protections for transgender students. So there's that. Obviously, lots of people wrote in. Parents of transgender students and allies of transgender students wrote in, calling on the President of the United States to enforce federal civil rights laws, which he didn't. So, that's cool. Then we have Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. Now, as a master's student of education, this is its own video, and I will make this video about the Secretary of Education, because what a ride. But basically, she and the United States Departments of Justice and Education revoked the Obama administration's guidance detailing school obligations to transgender students under Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972. So there's a lot of emphasis on transgender, and you're going to kind of see that throughout this, and I think that's because overall, if we look at the acceptance of gay marriage and gay people in general, it's gone up dramatically from 2000, where we started this timeline, to where we are now, which is 2016, 2017, even on the right. I think shows and representation have helped this, as well as pride and more people being out and visible in the community, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. But it's something to be aware of, because transgender people have it a lot harder, because there's still not a wide base of acceptance for transgender people, and I hope to see that change in the new presidency, and I think the pronouns options are a great sign for that. I hope it's not just in name only. I hope we see actual tangible action, but I think that's a great sign. So again, a difference between the two presidencies on LGBTQ+ issues already. And again, we are less than 48 hours into the Biden presidency. So the Trump's Housing and Urban Development Department in 2017, led by Ben Carson, withdrew a requirement for emergency shelters receiving HUD funding to post information about LGBTQ plus people's rights to access shelter safely and in accordance with their gender identity. And the second notice withdrew critical data collection about how many homeless youth are there that are LGBTQ. Now, this is a huge problem among LGBTQ plus youth. The homelessness crisis, as well as the suicide crisis and depression crisis of LGBTQ plus people, is dramatic. Partially because they aren't accepted at home and turn to homeless shelters or the streets because it is safer for them there than at home. And that's kind of crazy. I think especially for straight people to imagine, where the streets are safer than living with your family. Because oftentimes it's not just, oh, they don't accept me, it's, physical violence, domestic abuse, emotional abuse, that these kids are having to put up with in their homes and often then in their schools and their communities, that make them feel like leaving is better than staying. And in some cases it is. So, skipping ahead, positive things that happened under the Trump presidency that are hard to give Trump credit for because I don't think he deserves it, because like this one in 2017, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit ruled that the 1964 Civil Rights Act provides protections based on sexual orientation. That had nothing to do with Trump. So people who are saying, oh, well, this happened during the presidency, okay, explain to me how that is a result of Trump's actions. And I don't think he selected anybody for that Supreme Court circuit. And it goes against many of the policies that he enacted prior to this court ruling. So it's clearly not aligned with his platform. So, July 26, 2017, with the transgender military ban for serving in the military. Going back to the don't ask, don't tell thing, if you want to serve for this country, you are a patriot, a hero. Why would we care if you're transgender or not? Your primary characteristic is that you love this country and are willing to die for this country and for what it stands for. And then many military leaders basically came out and were like, hey, this actually impacts us quite a bit. We have a number of transgender people serving in the military who outed themselves after it was safe to out themselves prior to the reinstatement of don't ask, don't tell. So, this impacts our national security. But apparently, it's more important to just not have transgender people in the military. If you want a number, there's approximately 15,000 transgender Americans serving the country. So, 56 retired generals and admirals released a joint statement warning that his transgender military ban would degrade military readiness. Speaking of, Secretary Betsy DeVos, she officially rescinded the critical 2011 Title IX guidance related to schools' obligations to address sexual harassment, including sexual violence, and this specifically affects LGBTQ plus people at a higher rate than straight people. It affects everybody, but it affects LGBTQ plus people because they are more likely to be the victims of sexual violence than straight people. you know, maybe that's news to you because I think there's this big stereotype specifically about transgender people that they are predators, and that's just not backed by facts. They are way more likely to be the victims of sexual violence more than any other group of people, not the offenders. Now this is where it gets very hard to defend Trump on LGBTQ plus issues. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders made the startling admission that Trump agreed with the position articulated before the Supreme Court by his Solicitor General, Noel Francisco, that businesses should be allowed to hang signs that say they won't serve LGBTQ plus people. So it's good to know we want discrimination back in the land of the free, land of equality, land of opportunity. It doesn't feel like we're going back in time at all. 2018, Betsy DeVos, again a pick of Trump's, officially announces that the Education Department will not act to protect transgender students from using bathrooms that are related to their pronouns, that match their gender identity. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Another positive thing that happened during the Trump administration is Obergefell v. Hodges. Just kidding. That happened before. Haha. That's a joke for people who understand LGBTQ plus history. But then Senator Kamala Harris, now Vice President Kamala Harris, asked Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh if he'd agreed if it was ruled correctly, which he refused to answer. So, another pick by the Trump-Pence administration. Are you seeing how there's an agenda? Like, this is a series of actions taken by two people, Pence and Trump, to restrict and eliminate rights and protections for LGBTQ plus people. That is a gay agenda. It just happens to be an anti-gay agenda. Let's just jump to the very, very recent past, shall we? So, in a nasty, this is the title of the NBC News article, in a nasty parting shot, HHS finalizes rule axing LGBTQ non-discrimination protections. So basically, under the new health department rule, taxpayer-funded adoption agencies, so that's public, in other words, public adoption agencies, can discriminate against same-sex marriages and turn away qualified LGBTQ plus parents. Public adoption agencies, not even private. There's already private agencies that are allowed to do this. Public adoption agencies. Now, whether or not they do, is outside of the hands of Trump or Pence. But this came out January 12th of 2021. So, like, this month. If you believe in your heart of hearts that children are better off without parents in the broken foster care system that the U.S. has than being adopted to loving parents that happen to be LGBTQ+, I really want you to question why you feel that way. Why is that worse? Is it that you think the kid might grow up to respect LGBTQ plus people and that would be a bad thing? Is that not kind of a reflection on your own personal biases against LGBTQ plus people? Is it because you're worried that the kid might be more likely to be gay, even though that has not been proven by, the examples we do have of parents of LGBTQ plus, or LGBTQ plus parents of adopted children? And this is often, because this is a social issue, this is often overlapped, not always, with people who are pro-life and want everybody to choose to put their kids into foster or adoption, now curtailing who can adopt. So that makes absolutely zero sense to me. But if it makes sense to you, leave it in the comments down below, because this is obviously a discussion. And a debate in the US still. So, going back to, by the way, the appointment of Supreme Court justices by Trump, the nomination, and then approval of by the Republican Senate of Supreme Court justices. As a result, of these, we've seen the uptick in people willing to challenge the legality of same-sex marriage. For example, Indiana, again, home state, asked the Supreme Court to strip parental rights from gay couples. So you can't adopt, but if you have adopted, we're gonna take away those kids from you, even though you already have them, because that's not damaging to the child. So I would argue that this half of the gay agenda would be more complex, more vicious, and honestly maybe more effective in terms of being able to get policy passed than the side I'm about to discuss, which is the pro-gay agenda, of which I am a part. I've never really understood this, because having a gay character is even considered shoving it down our throats. Simply saying that you are, often shoving it down our throats. Talking about important policy issues, shoving it down our throats. And yet, as we saw on the anti-gay agenda side, they were talking about policy issues involving LGBT plus people. Why are they allowed to talk about those policies and we aren't? In terms of characters, you've got to be kidding me. I'm bisexual. I enjoy, romance movies. I think actually all people enjoy romance movies between men and women. It's like, that's what we've had forever. So it's not like gay people only watch gay things. But having like a gay character is not like shoving it down your throat. They just exist, and it's part of who they are. And especially if the show is not centered around their sexuality, it's just that they have boyfriends and then they'll have a girlfriend, or then they'll have a non-binary partner. I don't see how that's shoving it down our throats. That would be like saying that every straight couple in every TV show, or not even couple, every straight person in every show is shoving straightness down our throats. Which, in that amount of quantity, maybe it is, but I feel like that's kind of a silly argument. More representation is just meant to show that there are more than just straight people that exist in the world. So, that's a side tangent. Bi-visibility. I might cut that whole thing out and put it in another video. My personal gay agenda. So, let's discuss the pros of the pro-LGBTQ+ agenda. So, recently, during the Trump administration, probably much to Pence and Trump's chagrin, we did have a Supreme Court ruling that supported LGBTQ+ people. In fact, it is that ruling that is the reason I came out on my private pages. Previously, I had been living my out and proud life here on the East Coast, where it is safe to do so, but I was not in my home state of Indiana because I felt that it wasn't safe, and it was still legal and very common to discriminate employment opportunities based on sexual orientation. So I kept it to myself, which is to be a representative, to promote equality, and to promote policies that are going to help LGBTQ+ people, and really all people, because it's about equality, not preferential treatment. So here are some changes, some positive things already that we're seeing from Biden and his administration. Again, within 48 hours of the presidency. So this is part of the gay agenda, but again, this is for equality. You can see how this, if you're straight, doesn't really affect you because it's about equality and making, people who are LGBTQ+ get the same things that you already got. Okay, first obvious one, Pete Buttigieg is the first openly gay person to be nominated for a cabinet secretary position. So that shows you that, at least in some capacity, Biden is okay with gay people and sees them as just as qualified for jobs, counter to the ability to discriminate rhetoric that we continue to see throughout the Trump presidency. So that's a difference. Additionally, Biden revoked Mr. Trump's executive order limiting the ability of federal agencies and contractors and other institutions to hold diversity and inclusion training. Isn't that crazy that had to be done? Or really undone. Why wouldn't we want that training? As a government, we should be learning about everybody and being inclusive, because the government's supposed to serve everybody. And how do you serve everybody if you don't know how to be inclusive to everybody? So that was about race and LGBTQ+. Additionally, another executive order reinforces the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to require the federal government to not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity, which is a policy that reverses Trump's administration. So, yay! So in 48 hours, we've already seen those things happen within Biden's presidency, and showing, hopefully a trend of, or an indication of, his larger gay agenda, which will be equality. How nice. Additionally, as I said earlier, he enabled the pronouns to go back up on the website. I'm not sure yet if he has reinstated the previous information tab about LGBTQ+ resources. If not, hopefully he does. But already we are seeing within 48 hours massive changes between the two administrations. Now, what does that mean for the future of LGBTQ+ people in this country? Well, the president's term is 4 years long. So we have to act swiftly if we want the pro-gay agenda to move forward. Unfortunately, we were set back, so moving forward actually means kind of going back to where we had been under the Obama administration, and then also moving forward. So it's kind of a challenging task for President Biden to take on and for the Congress to take on. Additionally, Trump filled the Supreme Court, so that is going to outlast Biden's presidency and will have a lasting impact. So how they decide to rule on these issues will impact these decisions. As this video, I think, hopes to portray, the gay agenda is not just what it's thought to be. Every person has a gay agenda. If you enjoyed this video about the recent history of the gay agenda on the right and the left, I hope you like this video. If you don't like my take on this video, I hope you leave your reasons in the comments down below so we can have a discussion about it. I again am linking all of my resources and references in the description below. And if you want to see more content, usually not about politics, but always inclusive, I hope, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Wherever you stand on LGBTQ+ issues, I hope you have a wonderful day and that we can work together to discuss these issues civilly and in a fact-based way. Have a wonderful week. Bye.